Good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning. I'm Aaron Keller along with you here on the Law and Crime Network as we begin our coverage of the criminal trial of Harvey Weinstein, a former movie producer facing 5 charges in a New York criminal courtroom. Let's take a live look outside that facility right now. We're waiting for Harvey Weinstein to show up to what is going to be basically a judicial conference today. That's the first step in this trial. This is where we anticipate a lot of administrative discussions about exactly how many witnesses will be called, when they will be called, things of that matter. Jury selection actually begins tomorrow, and we are expecting that to last up to 2 weeks. Jurors will be called 18 to 24 at a time up into the box to answer questions about their background and, of course, most importantly, exactly whether they can try this case and be fair to the defendant. He has constitutional rights to a fair trial, just like any other defendant in any case we cover here on the Law and Crime Network. Again, 5 charges. The top charge for Harvey Weinstein, predatory sexual assault. That's the charge. It's charged in duplicate here for 2 alleged victims, which could land that former movie producer in prison for life on the top end of the sentence. Of course, the other charges, a criminal sexual act in the first degree, and rape in the first degree, along with rape in the third degree. So we are waiting here at the Law and Crime Network for Weinstein to show up at the courtroom, possibly about half an hour from now. Our Jesse Weber is inside the courtroom waiting to see what happens. Angelica Spanos is standing by outside waiting to see exactly who kicks off this proceeding in the court of public opinion. Many people planning to speak before this case actually kicks off, and certainly after that hearing this morning. We, of course, here at the Law and Crime Network have spoken with many accusers leading up to this proceeding. The actual criminal charges deal with accusations from 2 accusers, but 4 more are expected to take the stand. Of course, you've been watching, and there are 80 accusers in total. Not all will make it in front of the judge in this criminal proceeding. Not all will make it in front of the jury. But let's listen to what one of those accusers, Erica Rosenbaum, had to tell us.
What does it mean to you that we're going to be there in that courtroom?
Well, I think my part in this has changed a little bit since the beginning, and I think a lot of the women would probably share my view, and that is that this is no longer about me or my experience. I think that we represent women who have chosen to come forward at great personal cost, and we are hoping for justice. And it's one thing for your reputation to be tarnished or for your career to be derailed. That is a personal cost, certainly, as a result of his personal choices. But this is a criminal case because what he did was against the law. He broke the law. And I think it's incredibly important for women moving forward to see that if somebody breaks the law, then they face consequences for breaking the law. And though I understand that the laws in the states are not necessarily built to defend survivors and to prosecute these kinds of crimes, I think there's an embarrassingly low rate of prosecution for these kinds of crimes. But I think that this is an incredibly important case, and it could set a precedent. I think women and everybody in our industry and others will be watching to see what happens, to see if his money and power can protect him, or if the word of all of these women moving forward together can see
when
justice.
The story came out, I was driving to work. My sister texted me, "You should tell your story." And that was, something from 20 years ago that had really affected my life. It was a really powerful moment, in those first couple months, and it's continued. So it was really the other women that started to speak about this situation, and I had no idea that there were other women.
Those were 2 of the accusers who have come forward with accusations against Harvey Weinstein. His attorney, of course, his lead attorney, has said, look, The media is unfairly trying this guy before he even goes to trial, and she believes he will be found not guilty. Let's jump in with analysis now. Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey is here with me this morning on the Law and Crime Network. So, Cheryl, we wrapped up the day together on Friday. We're back here Monday morning as we look at that live picture waiting for Harvey Weinstein to show up in court. Security obviously tight. From your perspective, from a police perspective, is this the sort of thing where you need to have forces out there staying vigilant?
Well, yeah, I mean, you always want to be prepared, right? You don't want to be reactionary. And so while I don't think he's under any personal danger, but, there could be protesters, there could be competing protesters for and against. And so you need to have the personnel resources for crowd control and management just in case. I don't anticipate any issues, but you want to be proactive.
Exactly. Okay, now from a trial perspective here, Cheryl, we have heard from the defense that, look, there's just so many accusations floating out there that we need to give this guy a fair shot in the courtroom from an investigatory standpoint, from a police standpoint. Where does this sit in your perspective when you have two accusers on the stand and you have 80 in total that are just out there floating in the press?
Well, listen, it is what it is. And I'm hypersensitive because I have been a victim of sexual harassment in the workplace. And nobody, whether it's one or whether it's 80, wants this kind of scrutiny. And so if there are 80 in the wings waiting to speak their truth, it's not their fault. It's Mr. Weinstein. He victimized these 80 women, and they have an affirmative right to speak their truth on what they had to endure as a result of his predatory behavior.
And it looks like we may have Harvey Weinstein pulling up in the courtroom right now, pulling up outside the courthouse here in Lower Manhattan. We're going to keep a close eye on this. Of course, will he be there with his walker? It looks like the answer is yes. This is the walker that he used during his last appearance. Harvey Weinstein walking into that courtroom. This is New York Supreme Court in Lower Manhattan to face 5 charges: predatory sexual assault, a criminal sexual act in the first degree as to the first accuser, and then predatory sexual assault, rape in the first degree, rape in the third degree as to the next accuser. Harvey Weinstein there with his attorneys, his lead attorney with her hand on his back there as he dips out of view to head into this judicial hearing to basically sort out exactly how this trial is going to play out. And of course, the rest of us waiting outside the courtroom there. Certainly seeing him in that walker is giving a different sense of who this guy is, Cheryl Dorsey. I've heard from people close to him that people don't realize how sick he really has been with these back injuries, but then we've got other people accusing him of basically faking it.
Well, listen, it's all about the optics, and I can't speak to his heart, so I don't know whether he is feigning some sort of illness, injury. But the fact of the matter is that this is not anything that's unique to his trial. All defendants come to court looking a certain way to try to gain sympathy, if you will, from a jury, I believe.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to move along and listen to some more from some of the accusers that we have spoken to leading up to this proceeding here on the Law and Crime Network. They talk to us about just exactly what this trial means to them.
So what are you looking for in this trial?
I don't think there's a victim of Harvey Weinstein's that doesn't want to see him behind bars, preferably for life. But, at the same time, I have cynicism about the legal the law. I myself I went to law school, so I have great respect for it. But at the same time, it didn't come through for us in '98. It's hard to see how it's coming through for victims now who are struggling to get successful criminal cases closed. And so it's hard to not be cynical about the process. I suppose I could say that I'm reserving judgment to see how the criminal proceedings progress.
Yeah, and if he's acquitted, because again, you know it better than everybody that sometimes you could see a strong case, it falls apart, you have to get a jury that's impartial. There's a lot of difficulty that goes into that,
Right.
and he is presumed innocent. So if he's acquitted, what does that mean for you? What do you think about that?
Well, I understand there are a couple more bites at the cherry. I understand that LA is pursuing an investigation and also London's pursuing an investigation. So I suppose it's not over if New York doesn't succeed in putting him behind bars. But of course, it would be immensely disappointing if I guess the strongest cases are against him here in New York, which was his home, and it would be indeed immensely disappointing if this case doesn't
I don't
succeed.
need him to admit guilt because I know that I know what he did. I know he is guilty. You know, me personally, I understand that general public will want to have that admission of guilt. But it would mean justice is served, you know. But what would I say to him? I mean, if I know he has daughters, if it was one of his daughters on that stand facing their rapist, you know, would he not want to do everything and, you know, to see that person behind bars and pay for their crimes? And also to the point of his defense, Donna Rotuno, in a Nightline interview that I watched, where she, in my opinion, was victim blaming at the very end of that, saying, well, if you don't want to be a victim, don't sign the NDA. If you don't want to be a victim, you know, don't go up to the hotel room. Just go out on Fifth Avenue and take a megaphone and say what you want. Yeah, I would proudly hold that megaphone on Fifth Avenue on the day that he gets, you know, that justice is served.
Those are some more of the accusers of Harvey Weinstein as he has entered that courtroom in Lower Manhattan for a judicial conference to basically set up the last-minute details administratively as to how his lengthy trial on sex crimes charges will play out. Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey back with me here on the Law and Crime Network now. So, Cheryl, from a police standpoint, what are police doing in these final moments leading up to this? Are witnesses getting ready? Are they reviewing notes? How does it look like from an investigative standpoint?
Well, their work is done. And so all the prepping that was going on has happened. Everybody is in place. And so, you know, no pun intended, but I guess much like a movie, you know, everybody's just ready to do their part, play their roles, speak their position, if you will. The victims this is their story. There's nothing to prep them on. They're just going to talk about what they experienced real time. And so it's just a matter of calming them, probably. Reassuring them, being comforting, and letting them know that they are not walking alone going forward.
Exactly. Okay. And of course, I have to ask this. Are police nervous at all for an attack? Because there were supposed to be 3 accusers at this criminal trial, and the 6th charge was dropped because of accusations by the defense of police impropriety in failing to hand over evidence. So could police, the officials who are usually the star witnesses for the prosecution, other than, of course, the accusers themselves, could they be a little bit nervous about that?
Listen, we're professionals, and so we do our job. And this is not the first case that these investigators have been involved in where cases or alleged victims have been dropped for one procedural reason or another. And so we do what we do, and we let the chips fall where they may. And procedurally, if there has to be a change or an amendment, we just roll with the punches. We get ready to play.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to take a break here on the Law and Crime Network. A reminder, though, Angelica Spanos standing by for us outside the courtroom. Law and Crime's Jesse Weber inside that courtroom waiting for this administrative hearing to kick off. We'll be hearing from them shortly here on the Law and Crime Network. Stay with us.